Good evening and welcome to Current Issues. I'm your host, Hesham Tillawi. Welcome back to the second hour of the special coverage of the execution of Saddam Hussein, the president of Iraq. What we're trying to do, ladies and gentlemen, not to really make Saddam Hussein looks good or bad. This coverage, as a matter of fact, has nothing to do with Saddam Hussein himself. The hanging of Saddam Hussein has nothing to do with Saddam Hussein himself either. You might find that strange, but that is the truth and that's the reality. That the hanging of Saddam Hussein, someone who has ruled the country for all these years, the country of Iraq, and on false pretenses, the United States, the strongest power on earth, decides to go and attack a country that has been under siege for 12 years. A country that has lost 500,000 people, that's 500,000 people, due to malnutrition and lack of medicine. During those years, we attacked that country because that country supposedly was threatening us, as George Bush lied to us and told us. So we go over there and we kill 650,000 Iraqis. We destroy the country. We imprison their president and we kill him. We kill him before he has a chance to answer his accusers. We kill him before Iraq has a chance to have an independent court system that can handle a case like Saddam. If Saddam was the cold-blooded murderer, as we are saying as the government of the United States, saying that he is, then let the International Court of Justice deal with him. Let the truth come out. Don't let the truth be buried with Saddam. Because a lot of truths, ladies and gentlemen, were buried with Saddam. The answer is why. Or actually the question is why. The reason is, ladies and gentlemen, because we are there to break up the country, destroy the country, and have these people kill each other. It's a statement that was written back in the 1980s, early 1980s, by the Israelis. It's a strategy for Israel how to control the Middle East. How to control the Middle East. There has been since 1982, when Israel has published, and Israel Shahak, the Israeli anti-Zionist human rights activist, translated this strategy for Israel in the 1980s, which basically have said that the Arab countries have internal faults from within, and we have to break up these countries to weaken them so we can be superior as a Jewish state among all these Arab states. Saddam Hussein, ladies and gentlemen, have created an Iraq, a state that was superior, technological, achieved self-contained. Iraq had 5,000 nuclear scientists. 5,000 nuclear scientists. It was the most technological Arab country in the 80s. He has done that, or he had done that, even while he had an 8-year war going on with Iran, that we, as the United States of America, have asked him to go and start with Iran, and he had obliged. Then Israel. See, Saddam was our friend. Saddam was a friend of the United States. Saddam will do anything. Saddam will do anything the United States asked him to do. They set up traps for him all over the place. Invaded Kuwait. They set up traps for him all over the world. Then finally we gave him an ultimatum. You have 48 hours to leave. On false pretenses. Iraq was not our enemy, so why did we go and fight Iraq? Because it's an Israeli strategic objective to destroy Iraq and destroy Saddam Hussein. That 1982, that's exactly what happened. In the clean break in 1996, they tried to get President Clinton to go in and destroy Saddam. Clinton did not. And then they planned it, and they got somebody who was willing to go and do it. And then we found out that Saddam had no link to 9/11, no links to Al-Qaeda, no links to bin Laden. As a matter of fact, these two were enemies. No weapons of mass destruction. We knew it. It's not that we did not know it. We are spending billions of dollars on our intelligence services. The Mossad, actually, the Mossad works for us too. The Mossad, the CIA, we have all these people. MI5s and MI6s, they have all these people working for us too. So if we knew it right here in Lafayette, Louisiana, that Saddam did not have weapons of mass destruction, I guarantee you the billions of dollars we are spending on the CIA, they also knew that Saddam did not have it. But that's not why we went and destroyed the country. We went and destroyed the country because it's an Israeli strategic objective. That's exactly what happened. Now, by killing Saddam, we are guaranteeing that if there was a chance for reconciliation, or if there was a chance for stability in Iraq, that chance is gone. That chance is gone, and gone forever. And at the time of the execution, it was clear who the United States wanted. Now, I still probably don't really 100% believe that the tape we have seen is 100%. It is authentic. That's exactly what happened. But I'm not convinced that it was not designed that way. And the chants and the chanting and exactly the way it took place. When the government of Iraq saying that they have taken every precaution so nobody will bring any cell phones with them. But if you notice, as a matter of fact, on the tape, it was probably two different devices were used, either cell phones or small cameras, wireless cameras, or whatever that were used at that time. But anyhow, I believe we have Dahr Jamail with us. Dahr Jamail is he is a journalist, investigative journalist. He's a freelance. Dahr been on the program a few times before. He told us what was happening in Fallujah. And he brought with him, he took a bunch of pictures, and we've seen exactly how what took place in Fallujah, how many people we killed there in Fallujah. And I wanted Dahr to come and shed some lights on and tell us his opinion about what is happening in Iraq now, because definitely, if anyone knows the workings and what is happening in Iraq, it would be Dahr. And Dahr can be reached at Dahr Jamail, and we're going to put the website on the screen, dahrjamail.com. Welcome to the show, Dahr.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thanks. Tell me, what do you think of the hanging of Saddam? I had Israel Shamir in the first hour, who thinks that the United States controlled every aspect of it from A to Z, even to the end.
Well, I think there's many factors with the execution, how it was allowed to take place, who did it, and the timing. Just the rough overview on all of these to start us off. I think that and a very important point that's spread like wildfire across the Middle East and across the Muslim world is the timing, which having this take place on December 30, which is the Sunni recognized day of the most religious Muslim holiday of the year, Eid al-Adha. And it's a holiday of mercy, and they killed him on this day, which, according to Iraqi law, there are no executions allowed to take place on an Islamic religious holiday. So that means they designated Iraq's Eid al-Adha as the 31st, which is the Shia day to designate that holiday, the Shia recognized day. So it sends a very clear message that Iraq is now a Shia-dominated state, whereas it was secular before when it was led by Saddam Hussein, which is, we've had very, very huge protests across the world. Today alone in India, 220 million Muslims demonstrated against the execution of Saddam Hussein occurring on that particular day. So this is a very, very important fact. Another is how it was done. Anyone who's watched the video can see these are clearly Mahdi army members who executed him. They were chanting, a peace be upon Muhammad and his followers, curse his enemies and make victorious his son, Muqtada, Muqtada, Muqtada. You don't have to speak Arabic to hear them chanting Muqtada, Muqtada, Muqtada. This is something that is a chant very, very specific, usually only used by members of the Mahdi army. So just a couple of things to get us started here that have sent very huge shockwaves across Iraq and the Middle East and the entire Islamic world.
Okay. So are you saying that the Shiites are in control, not the United States Army?
No, I don't want to be misunderstood in that. The timing of this, who controlled this, who allowed this to happen, this is all 100% U.S. controlled. He was in total U.S. custody. He was given over to these particular men of the Shia Mahdi army, Muqtada al-Sadr, the Shia cleric. It's his militia at this particular time to be executed on a particular U.S.-controlled base called Camp Justice in the Qadamiyya, predominantly Shia district of Baghdad, to be carried out on this specific day, and then given back to the U.S., who then transported his body up to Crete. So none of this could have, everything I just said could not have happened without direct complicity and allowance by the U.S. occupation forces of that country. Also, the timing is suspect because, of course, it comes conveniently right along the time the 3,000th U.S. soldier has been killed, admitted by the Pentagon, and also conveniently timed just as Congress is about to go back into session, and also conveniently timed just as Mr. Bush is about to announce why he's going to be sending between 20 and 30,000 troops additionally into Iraq.
Okay, so tell me about those additional troops. What is the plan? What is the long-term plan here?
Well, the long-term plan remains the same as it has been from the beginning. Again, if we just look at the physical evidence on the ground in Iraq, we have this so-called U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, which is the size of the Vatican City. It's the size, which is also the size of two-thirds the area of the National Mall in Washington, D.C., which will have room for between 3,000 and 8,000 so-called government employees. We have between 6 and 12 permanent U.S. military bases there. Some of them have upwards of 20,000 soldiers on one particular base, like Camp Anaconda. And then we can cite U.S. Military strategy documents like the National Security Strategy and the Quadrennial Defense Review Report, which talk about ongoing wars in the Middle East in areas where there's vital U.S. strategic interests and resource interests, particularly talking about Iraq and Iran. So that, coupled with the fact that we already have 3,500 troops recently deployed into Kuwait, getting ready to go into Iraq. Already troops are on the ground in Iraq, are getting information that their tours will likely be extended, which is another way that they augment or upgrade the number of troops in Iraq. So this is something that's already starting to happen, but they're just now letting the information get out to the public.
Okay. Tell me, you've been there. Is there any chance that Iraq will remain united?
That's a very good question and a very difficult question. On the forces we have that very much want Iraq divided. We have, of course, the U.S. neocons. We have the Israeli Zionist forces, people like Kissinger, who was writing about dividing into Iraq into 3 or 4 rump states back in the 1970s. There's big efforts from both of those entities to have Iraq divided. Iran would particularly have an interest in this. But then we have groups inside of Iraq, like many actually of even the Kurdish groups, do not want to have a totally divided Iraq. Sunni groups and more secular Shia groups do not want to have a divided Iraq. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. It is a no-brainer. Anyone that has been studying the situation is aware of the fact that one thing that would basically guarantee a very extensive deepening of the civil war that we're seeing right now would be an attempt at dividing Iraq.
Okay. Now, Dahr, this is clearly what's happening. This is Iraq has to be divided along these different fault lines that was presented like back in 1982 as a strategy for Israel. Are we being used in the United States? Is the United States being used to implement that Israeli strategy?
Well, it's really, I really have gone back and forth on whether is the U.S. calling the shots in Iraq or is Israel. And, I think right now it's kind of more of a perfect storm type of situation where the interests of both of these two states are very much in concert at the moment regarding Iraq. The neocons, some of the key neocons are Zionists, and they are acting squarely and purely in the interest of the Zionists in Israel. People like Douglas Feith, people like Paul Wolfowitz, people like Richard Pearl. And even though some of these have moved out of the administration, don't think for a second that they're still not very large players on this administration and their policies in Iraq. But then we also have that overlapping with U.S. empire interest of having permanent bases in Iraq and then using that to deepen U.S. strategic military influence deeper into the Middle East, i.e. Iran, in their ongoing efforts to surround China. This again is backed up if you read U.S. strategy and policy documents. They're already wargaming with China, doing computer war games, practicing with new space weapons in war games against China for the years 2016 and 2017. And this is just part of that plan. So we can see that there's certainly the U.S. empire and geopolitical and corporate interests in this region with Iraq and then further into the region. And that right now is just very conveniently in concert with the Zionist interests.
Okay. The family of Saddam Hussein wanted him actually buried in a different city. What do you read into that? Why was he buried in Al-Oja, not in Ramadi like his family wanted?
Yes, exactly. They wanted him buried in Ramadi for symbolic reasons because it is the capital city of Al-Anbar province. It is the most powerful, dominated Sunni province, which is also one-third the geographic area of the entire country of Iraq. So for symbolic reasons, to have him really be martyred and placed in the capital of Ramadi, which right now is being seen as the center of resistance in Iraq. And once again, having him buried in Aoja instead is another move of trying to humiliate or degrade Saddam, which I think is just going to backfire. These people who, for example, carried out this execution in this way of taunting him while he's in his last seconds of life, and then having that taped by a video phone and broadcast around the globe, it's going to backfire. It already is backfiring because we're seeing more people now sympathetic to the resistance, more people joining the resistance, and not just in Iraq but in other countries around the globe.
As a matter of fact, they probably have accomplished what Saddam himself could not accomplish while he was alive. Now he's a hero to a lot of people who did not even like him.
Very much so. It's really astounding, even in recent polls, where if we talk about even the majority of Shia are saying things that along the lines that 90% of the people in Iraq recently surveyed admitted that they felt that the situation was better under Saddam. So that means a vast majority of Shia and even Kurdish in Iraq are now wishing things were back when he was even in charge. And so far, everything that the U.S. and their puppeteers, whether they be Shia or Kurdish, in Iraq have tried to do to manipulate the situation to their advantage has come back and backfired on them.
Now, the prayer that the Iraqis who executed Saddam is a complete and literal translations from an Iranian prayer. Do you think the Iranians through Muqtada Sadr has that kind of power in Iraq that they can even or is there an agreement between the Iranians and the Americans here? I'm really confused, Dahr, of why would the United States government have Muqtada Sadr, who is, number one, they were in Iran before we went over there and before the United States Army went over there and destroyed the country. There's like a collaboration between the Iranians and the United States government on this deal. Do you see any of that?
Well, to a certain degree, and this is where, I'll just be real up front. My opinion, my personal opinion of this, and I won't write about this because I need some more facts before I do that, but my personal opinion as to why the execution was allowed to take place as it did by members of Muqtada al-Sadr's Shia militia, very clearly for political and revenge reasons. There was nothing about justice or legitimacy behind this, specifically when we look at the video that came out with the taunting and this sort of thing. But this really just shows me very clearly that it was allowed, and again, keeping in mind that all of that is allowed to happen by U.S. forces. Nothing in Iraq is happening without them, particularly on this level where it's going to be getting out to international media, specifically with regards to Saddam Hussein. Nothing is being allowed to happen by the Americans without their consent. And in my opinion, this is a very deliberate, another attempt to divide and conquer. They're well aware of how inflamed it's going to make the situation by letting it be carried out in this way and then shown across as it has been. So that's my opinion. I think it's another divide and conquer. It's another similar to when we saw the bombing of the Askari shrine in Samara last February, and really that deepened the level of violence that we're already seeing. And we're going to see the same thing here. And keep in mind that when Saddam Hussein was captured by when he was the Kurdish Peshmerga troops led the Americans to him in December 2003, and he was captured on December 13, 2003. That less than 2 months later, attacks on coalition forces had doubled. And I am going to, I think, not go on too far out on a limb here and predict that within 60 days or so, we should expect to see attacks on U.S. forces to, if not double, come quite close to doubling.
Okay. So what we're going to see here? Do you think the killing of Saddam is going to redraw the map in the Middle East? Is this the beginning of the end of the Sykes-Picot agreement that took place back in 1916 or 14?
Again, that's where I think we get to where it's quite difficult to make this prediction. I think that it's quite easy to argue that the goal of this administration and the people behind them, the neocons, the Zionists, and many of the corporate interests as well, are very interested in redrawing the lines in the Middle East. And in order to do that, they need to have continuing violence, continuing chaos, deeper destabilization within Iraq so that it will continue to spread around the region, which is exactly what we're seeing today and have been just watching this phenomena worsen from the beginning of the invasion of Iraq, and it's grown worse with each passing day up until right now. So I think that certainly this is starting to happen, and I think that one could easily argue that it is a deliberate policy because, the neocon agenda, when you look at the Project for the New American Century and read it closely, it does talk about that. It does talk about perpetual war and destabilizing regimes and manipulating environments to suit U.S. interests.
Okay, very good. So we should not take anything as it happened for an accident. I mean, definitely this hanging, in my opinion, is pre-designed, and exactly the way it happens pre-designed to basically fuel this sectarian fighting between the Shiites and the Sunnis.
I think it's very easy to argue that. One thing I think we all need to be careful of is that while there are many things like this hanging that have been deliberately set up and fomented by the U.S. in Iraq, whether it's covert operations or something more blatant like the execution we just witnessed, that not every single thing is under direct control by the Americans. But when we do look at something like this stage-managed execution of Saddam Hussein, just like the stage-managed toppling of his statue in Firdos Circle on April 9th, the day that Baghdad fell, and many, many other things that have taken place, particularly things regarding Saddam Hussein or things that are going to immediately grab international headlines, rest assured the Americans are behind all of these.
So I guess it's like a dominoes effect. All you have to do is just push one piece and just sit back and watch the rest fall.
That's very true, without a doubt, like that, the bombing of the shrine in Samarra, many other things we could point to have had that direct effect. But then at the same time, there are other things happening, like when in January 2004, when Paul Bremer, then the head of the CPA, was refusing to have elections, which the Shia in Iraq were wanting. Sistani called for immediate demonstrations and basically shut down the capital city, and that's why we had these elections in January '05, which have led us to the Shia-dominated government today. And none of that was exactly to the plan of the U.S. So my point is that there's other forces that are mucking things up a bit, making them more complex and difficult for the Americans. But there are certain other events that we can point to that, yes, like this execution, I'll come back to that again, is very much under the direct control of the timing, the execution, the publicity, the media attention. All of this is certainly orchestrated by the Americans.
Very good. Dahr, I appreciate you coming in the program. Just wanted to hear your, as I do value your opinion, I wanted to hear your comments on the subject. Thanks for coming on the program.
My pleasure. Thanks again for having me.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, while we go to the next guest, which will be Mark Glenn, I'm going to go to the phone and talk to Amigo. Go ahead, Amigo.
Hi, Doc. How you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Happy New Year, and God be with you and your family all throughout 07.
Same to you and yours.
Yes, Doc. I finally got me a home computer.
Good.
Yes, I got me one, and I watched your first hour show, and everything, you and your guesses were right. Now, I'm far from being a rocket scientist, okay? But I try to have common sense and live by common sense. And far as I'm concerned, from what I've gathered now on my new computer, this was an assassination. No matter who wants to call it, by Saddam, don't get me wrong, I don't condone what he did in the past.
Right.
But Doc, I have Muslim friends, and to execute this man on a Muslim holiday is just a travesty for me anyway, because I try to be a good Christian. I wouldn't want somebody like to be executed on a Christian holiday. Okay, that's another story. But anyway, I'm very enjoying your new show, your first show of the year.
Thank you.
And I just want to tell Freedom, the one that got me watching your show, that you are right, Doc. He needs to stop watching CNN, Fox, and MSNBC, because these people are not. I quit watching them 6 months ago, by the way, Doc.
Well, You know, I do watch these shows to see the lies that to see the lies. Now, I don't recommend. I mean, you know, this is very risky when people watch CNN and Fox, because if you don't have the capabilities of analyzing the news, then don't go and watch these, because you will get sucked in. And now there are some people, like for instance Freedom, when he watches CNN and Fox and all these, he knows that he's not going to be sucked in to their lies, but he needs to know, and I need to know what they are telling you, because I cannot label them as liars if I don't know what they're saying.
Well, you're correct about that. I understand that.
Yeah.
You know, but
I don't. I tell you what.
Constantly watching them. You know.
Right. I don't recommend anyone to watch these.
Because I get the facts now on my computer. And these websites that I wrote down before I had a computer, I used to go to the library, and I got Jamal, your last guest, I love this guy. He's factual. You know, and I got his website and what have you. That's what I'm recommending, you know, for the honest facts, you know. People that does, like you always say, your terminology, do the actual research on these things. That's what I'm referring to. And by the way, your new background, you're going to keep it like that?
You know what? If people like it, we're going to keep it. I think it looks professional, probably.
I like the old one.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. By the way, before I go to the next guest, Mark Glenn, for our locals here, if anyone would like to volunteer for the show, please get hold of us. You can reach us at, we're going to put the email address, and you can reach us here, and also you can reach us at the station here if you would like to volunteer for the show. No experience necessary. We can use some additional helping hands. We'll teach you how to do the cameras and the control room and all this exciting stuff that you do, and you will be part of the show. We will put your name as on the credits. That way you will be part of the professional team that we have. And this is, of course, all volunteer work to put this show. And for people outside the area, you can also volunteer in the research department. So we can use some extra helping hands outside the area and in the area where you will come into the studio and actually help us produce the show. If you're interested, please let us know. Drop us a line. Call us, and we will call you back and get all that information. It's an exciting, you can spend a couple of hours a week. It's exciting. You will see exactly what goes on. I believe Marco is with us. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Doctor. Thank you for having me on.
Sure, I had to. I didn't have anyone else. You know what, Mark? I could not have the show without having you on the show. I refused to have this show if you were not going to be on it.
You're a glutton for punishment, then.
Tell me, Mark, what do you think of all this craziness that's going on, the killing of Saddam?
Well, I'd like to start off my answer by reading a section of that was written by an ex-Israeli intelligence officer. His name is Victor Ostrovsky, and his book is entitled The Other Side of Deception. And in this book, he details, during his 6 years as a Mossad agent, what the Israeli agenda was in terms of dealing with Saddam Hussein in Iraq. And so I'm going to read a section of his book right now.
Okay.
He says, the Mossad was extremely busy at the time preparing for what they called Operation Brushfire. This was an all-out Israeli psychological warfare attack aimed at getting the United States involved militarily in the Middle East in general, and the Gulf area in particular. The Mossad regarded Saddam Hussein as their biggest asset in the area, since he was totally irrational as far as international politics was concerned, and was therefore all the more likely to make a stupid move that the Mossad could take advantage of. What the Mossad really feared, though, was that Iraq's gigantic army, which had survived the long Iran-Iraq war, and was being supplied by the West and financed by Saudi Arabia, would fall into the hands of a leader who might be more palatable to the West and still, at the same time, be a threat to Israel. The first step was taken in November 1988. God told the Israeli force all talks with the Iraqis regarding a peace front. By January of 1989, the Mossad was busy portraying Saddam as a tyrant and as a danger to the world. The Mossad activated every asset that it had in every place possible, from volunteer agents and Amnesty to fully bought members of Congress. He goes on further in talking about this, talking about the gassing the Kurds we have heard so much about, the fact that it was the Mossad, along with the United States government, who supplied Saddam Hussein with the satellite to be direct these missiles with these people. And so, in bringing this up, this thing that we see taking place today, while it may be celebrated by some and it may be forgotten by others, what we have to keep in mind is that, as you have pointed out many times, Hesham, this is all part of a long, drawn-out policy, at least 20 years long.
Now, a policy for who?
For Israel. This is what this whole thing is about. And people want to scream about George Bush, about Dick Cheney, about oil, about Halliburton, and all these other corporations. But what it really all goes down to is Israel.
And so why are we doing it? I mean, why the United States would lose 3,000 of its good people, good men and women, about 35, 40,000 wounded, and some of them maimed for life, destroy the economy because we are basically our economy is in shambles. Why are we doing it? What is in it for us?
Nothing is in it for us. The 435 members of Congress who, for the most part, signed on to this, and for the 100 or so people who worked directly for George Bush's White House, we have to keep in mind, these are not like people like you and I. They don't go out and work hard for a living. They are criminals. They are compromised. Who knows what kind of dirt Israel's intelligence service has on these people? What depicts doing various things? What kind of financial dealings have they gotten involved in that could land them in jail? Keep in mind, people running our government, they working for the people. They are working in the interest of a foreign hostile power.
Okay.
So the answer to your question, Hesham, is that there's nothing in it for you and me. We're being bled dry. We're being hated and marginalized around the world. We're sending our sons and daughters off to fight and die. There's nothing in it for us. But for these people who stand to get rich, and really, what it really all boils down to is that they are afraid of either going to prison or being run off disgracefully or something like that. To them, you can do it.
Okay. Mark, give me your final thoughts in 1 minute.
This should be a warning to all people, all leaders of any country who cooperate with the Zionists. In the end, even when you give them everything that they want, just like Saddam Hussein did, they will still turn on you and devour you.
Okay. Mark, I just want to thank you for coming on the program. Unfortunately, we're running very tight on time. I wanted to hear more of what you have to say, but we're going to have to bring you back on another day and talk more in depth about what you have to say about the Middle East and why are we at war. Thank you, sir, for coming on.
See ya.
Thanks. Okay, going with Joe on one while we wait for the next thing. Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
Fine, thank you.
Hey, listen, I want to just change the subject a little bit about, and this is something local. It has to do with an elected mayor, a black man, the first black man elected to mayor in a town called Westlake, Louisiana.
Joe, if this does not have anything to do with what we're talking about, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go because we only have like a few minutes left. I have people waiting online to talk about the execution of Saddam, and also this show is going throughout the world, and I know people will not be interested in a mayor in Westlake. I mean, I'm sorry, I apologize, but if it doesn't have to do with the topic we're talking about, I can't.
Okay.
Thank you. Because, this show goes out on the internet. We have people watching it as we speak. Very much in about 50 different countries. People get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to watch this, 4 o'clock in the morning to watch this, and I know they will not understand. Okay, I'm going with Bonnie on 3, so my apologies to you, Joel. I just couldn't. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, Dr. Tillawi. I hope you have a good holiday and
it was beautiful, except
I wanted to bring something up that I just found today. It was written by Chris Hedges, and he spent time in the Middle East for the New York Times.
Okay.
And his article is about, it's entitled "Get Carter" in the January 8th issue, 07 issue of The Nation magazine.
Okay.
And he talks, and it just verifies 99% of what you've said. He talks about the Jewish control of the media, Congress, and the government here, and he also talks about it reaching a full-blown humanitarian crisis, Gaza, and he quotes this Gideon Levy, who wrote recently in the Israeli paper Haaretz, and he said, this Levy said, Gaza is in its worst condition ever. The Israeli Defense Forces have been rampaging through Gaza. There's no other word to describe it. Killing, demolishing, bombing, and shelling indiscriminately. How contemptible all the sublime and nonsensible talk about the end of the occupation and partitioning the land now appears. Gaza is occupied and with greater brutality than before. This is disgraceful and shocking collective
and this is an Israeli writer.
In an Israeli paper, and this doesn't reach us here, but the Nation writer, Chris Hedges, is talking about all of this Anti-Defamation League attacking Jimmy Carter for his book, which you had mentioned before, and he talks about how, he condemns the Jewish lobby for these attacks on Carter, and he says exactly that, if anything, Carter was a little too soft on the Israelis, which you had said also.
Right.
And but he goes on in a very good article. You really have to get this January 8th issue. It is exactly a detailed, like, long article about it.
I will definitely look it up, and if you get a chance, go ahead and email it.
I tried to, but I think there's some interference on my in a lot of stuff I try to email. It gets blocked. I think I'm on the hit list.
Either yours or mine,
It's on the hit list. Like something is default in my computer, but it's only when it relates to certain topics.
Of course.
It goes through on other things, or it'll go through on people that are just like just a casual name friend. But if it's the Daily Advertiser or you or other media, it doesn't go through.
Oh well, they have this
freedom of the press.
Well, this apartheid wall that they're putting around Palestinians in Palestine, they also put it around activists on the internet.
Well, and it's not like so much an activist. It's just that our only source of true information is the internet.
That's true.
And it's just really blocking truth coming from different sources.
That is true. Thank you, Bonnie. Thanks.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we kept the best to last, and next up we're going to have Judy Andreas, who is Jewish, and who's going to tell us, Bonnie before her, a while ago she said the Jewish-controlled media, and also Mark Glenn mentioned the neocons and the Jews who are controlling us, and Dahr Jamail and Israel Shamir and all the guests that we have for you tonight, they all very much put the blame on the Jews. So we have one who could, I guess Judy could go either way. She could be a Christian or she could be a Jew, but a lot of people have, whenever they want to, they call her a Christian, and whenever they want to, I guess, get on her case, they will say Jewish. So Judy, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Better not say anything pro-Israel.
Judy.
You're saving the best for last. That means there's somebody after me?
No, you're the best.
Just kidding.
Now, Judy, help me go through all this and through all this craziness. Help me sort through it. What is going on? What's happening?
Well, first of all, let me say the Zionists are a big slice of what's going on, obviously, but I think there's also manipulation there, too. And I think that people, it's very easy to simplify. People look at something which is really a many-headed beast. There's a quasi-military clique that is ruling Iraq right now, which is going to create an environment conducive to the interests of big business. I think I agree very strongly with a lot of what Dahr Jamail said. Now, earlier you said that somebody's writing this script, and I suspect this is far more complicated than we're aware. When Saddam was first captured, if you recall, both his wife and his ex-mistress said that the man captured was not Saddam. There was a thing about his teeth, which were noticeably bad, and Iraq had really superior dental care. Now, whatever the case is, Saddam was created by the CIA. He knew all about the Bush's family's genocidal policies and the CIA's murders overseas. Wouldn't he have tapes and other reams of written evidence and documentation of the Bush crime syndicate and its minions in their dealings with him? And the CIA created a career? And wouldn't he have given people this evidence in case something happened to him? I mean, you see that in the cheesiest movies. Always, if something happens to me, make sure this gets out, There was such a hurry to execute this man. It was carried out before the trial was even finished. And most of Saddam's crimes were committed when he was an ally of those who occupy the country. It was the approval of Washington and the poison gas supplied by West Germany that gave him confidence to douse Halabja. And with chemicals, which I guess in the midst of the Iran-Iraq war. So this whole thing, the whole trial, the whole execution, it's just blatant disregard of international humanitarian law. This was stated by Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch and other peace organizations around the world. And so I feel that a manufactured monster has become a martyr. I do believe it is the beginning of the end, like you were saying, and I think it's working out exactly how the powers that be want. They want to destabilize the Middle East, as you clearly read earlier at the beginning of the show in such documents as PNAC and A Clean Break. And this was done on a holy day as an affront to the Islamic world. It's a sadistic act to demonstrate a warning that the world must either bow to the dictates of the Bush regime, and forgive me for not saying the Zionists, but we'll call it the Bush regime since the guy's standing up there, so he's complicit in whoever are pulling the strings, or face the consequences of a public lynching. So everything is planned. And I've heard that we're already funding Syrian opposition groups. We're just marching around according to exactly the way it's been written, exactly the way it's been predicted, not through great prophets, but through the people who fashioned this heinous plan.
So, Judy,
yes?
Who's planning, in your opinion?
I believe that this is really, I try to figure this out all the time, and then some people, if I ever implicate or think that the Vatican has anything to do with it, people start saying, oh no, she's a Jewish apologist, or, then I say Zionist, and I get onto the self-hating, Israel-threatening Jewish list, So I'm like, as you said, I get it from everywhere, but I do believe that there is an incredible group of people. I don't even call them Jews anymore. I mean, they obviously, a lot of them are Jewish by birth. They are, to me, they're Luciferians because they're obviously following a very, very dark force. There's nothing to me that's religious about them. They're certainly not these guys who are walking around saying be good to everybody and, wait for the Messiah or whatever. I mean, so many people have their own philosophies about what's going on. But I think that, sure, the Rothschilds are up there. The Rockefellers are up there. The Warburgs are up there. You can trace these people to the beginnings of all kinds of wars and stuff that has gone on. You can also find out that the Rothschilds are the are the bankers of the Vatican. You can find out, you have to, I feel that I have to listen to everybody. I have to always suspend my belief systems. I have to take nothing as gospel because I feel that, truthfully, the truth will set us free. But
Okay, Judy, what you're saying, I mean, you did mention, and other guests mentioned the clean break and the New American Century. And these two documents, the signatories on those documents, on the clean break, they very much, all of them are Jews. I'm looking at Richard Pearl, Douglas Feith, David Wormser, Mary Wormser, and also I'm looking at the Century, American New Century, Elliot Abrams, who is Jewish, Paul Wolfowitz. I'm looking at
there are
Richard Pearl, William Crystal. I'm looking at all these people who are Jews. So is this a Jewish conspiracy in your opinion?
No, but there are an awful lot of Jews in it. There are a huge amount of Jews. Israel is a very strategic location. You notice how none of these big Zionist Jews live in that dangerous area. They're all facing.
So why don't they go and take care of it themselves? Why do they have to involve us here in the United States to lose our own children and our own money and send our country into economic down in a spiral?
We're their soldiers. Why did they dupe their own brethren? If they had this big Jewish clannish cliquishness, why did they dupe their own brethren in World War II to sucker them into going over to take the Palestinian land to create this apartheid state and to put people and to sacrifice people? The more blood that is shed, the better it is for getting Palestine. They care about themselves. They care about their dollar bills. They care about their greed and lust for power. And they don't care about anybody else, Jews, Gentiles, Christians, or Muslims. And they will use anybody who's in their way. And believe me, I will take a bullet in my back.
Because, Judy, it's only a matter of time, and now it's probably a matter of days, before these Muslim and Arab countries realize that, you know what? We're going to have to stand up not just to Israel but to the United States, because the United States is lying to us. They're not here for democracy and freedom. They're here to kill us. They're here to take over our land. And before you know it, you have these Muslim countries in a major war with the most powerful country in the world. I mean, if we can't take care of Iraq, a war in Iraq, can this country be at war with the Muslim world? Because definitely, whoever is designing this, if it's the neocons, if it's the Jews, if it's the Zionists, if it's whoever is designing it, they are succeeding. And we, on both sides, by the way, the Muslims, the Arabs, and the Americans, are playing into their game.
Exactly, Heshem. We're falling lockstep into this plan. Alfred Pike, who was the third Pope of the Illuminati, said in the 1800s that the Third World War would be fought between the Zionists and Islam. And he was not a Nostradamus type. He was just talking about the blueprint for what's going to happen. And we're playing the game because we keep hating each other. And that's why, if I have one purpose in life, it's a healer and a uniter and a unifier.
Was that in the 1800 something? When was that?
And it was about 1860 when he talked about that. He talked about the first two world wars would be fought with Germany, and the Third World War, if you don't want to count the Cold War, the Third World War would be between the Zionists and Islam. And the Muslims have been targeted, maybe starting with Saran, another patsy dupe who was trained for something or mind controlled or whatever, And if people in this country, and I say people in Israel too, if people don't start to wake up, we're in trouble. The answer is not to hate your brethren, whether your brethren is Jewish or European American or Muslim, whatever it is. Don't hate. Don't get angry. We're all in this together. There are a lot more of us than there are of them. And united we stand.
Okay. Judy, that's why I kept you until the end, because you will have some wise words to say, and you have done so. I only have time to say thank you for coming on the program.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it does not have to be that way, though, but we will see you next Tuesday at 6:30. Good night.